How about that for timing? That's so weird. Okay, I don't know about this. I like when you're next to me. You?
This is the men's gallery.
Oh, yeah, obviously we got shoved to the side.
Are we ready? Okay. Call to order the meeting of the March 21st, 2024 Design Review Committee meeting. We're going to start with a good evening, and we're going to call the meeting to order at precisely 5 o'clock. Lisa, please take a roll call.
Member Lapp?
Here.
Member Kavanaugh?
Here.
Member Martin?
Yes.
Vice Chair Dryden-Hess?
Present.
Chair Jacobson-Bates?
Present.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Chris, will you lead us today?
Absolutely. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Chris. Can I have a motion to approve the order of the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Having heard a motion and a second to approve the order of the agenda as presented, Lisa, would you take a roll call vote?
Member Lapp?
Here.
Member Kavanaugh?
Yes.
Member Martin?
Yes.
Vice Chair Dryden-Hess?
Yes.
Chair Jacobson-Bates?
Yes. So now we're going to move on to consent items. And Lisa, again, can you introduce this item?
Items on consent are typically routine and will be approved in one motion. The chair will call on anyone wishing to address the committee on any consent item on the agenda, which has not been pulled by the committee for discussion. Each speaker will be permitted to speak only once, and comments will be limited to a total of 3 minutes.
Okay, we're going to start with in-person public comments first. Is there anybody in the room who would like to speak on an item that is not on the agenda? I don't see anybody there. On the video on Zoom, is there anybody there? No? Okay. Do any committee members have items that you would like to pull? If not, I will entertain a motion to approve the consent items.
So move.
Seconded.
Okay, having heard a motion and a second to approve consent items, Elisa, would you take a roll call vote?
Member Lapp?
Here. Yes.
Member Kavanaugh?
Yes.
Member Martin?
Yes.
Vice Chair Dryden-Hess?
Yes.
Chair Jacobson-Bates?
Yes.
I think we have a representative of the business at 1623 Mission Drive that was just approved by the consent. I'm not sure you have anything to say. Am I
Was
correct
not
about
aware of that.
Am I correct in that?
Are you representing 1623 Mission Drive?
Yes.
Okay, that item was just approved.
Okay.
Did you? Thank you for coming. Okay. So now we're going to move on to item 4A. Am I correct there, Lisa? And for those of you in the room, this is my first time chairing a meeting, so bear with me here.
Chairman Bates, I have a question for you.
Yes.
So I lived 500 feet from this item number 4A, but I have since moved, although I still own that property. Should I recuse myself?
I'm going to turn that one over to staff. We have member Lapp who owns property less than 500 feet from the property under discussion item 4A.
Yes,
Committee Member Lapp should recuse himself. Just want to verify that with the city attorney.
That's correct. Yeah, that constitutes a material financial interest according to the FPPC regulations.
Okay, I'll recuse myself.
All right. I think we will ask you then to step out of the room for the conversation, if I understand correctly.
Are there other items that I need to stay around for?
We will bring you back for committee member comments and planning manager report.
Okay. I tried. Okay.
Good try.
Doesn't hurt to
Nice
Tried
try,
the same
Chris. We will miss your input. Appreciate that you recused yourself as necessary. So then on to Raphael. Can you please introduce item 4A for us? And
Yes, thank you. Before you this evening is a discussion item. Let me see if I can zoom in here. Thank you. So a discussion and possible action to recommend approval for a development plan and lot merger located at 1687 and 1693 Mission Drive, APN 139, 145, or excuse me, APN 139, 143, 025, and 026 to demolish an existing commercial structure and redevelop the remaining portion of the property into a 40-room hotel with 4 ancillary commercial units. The proposed project is categorically exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act. So I'm going to go over a brief presentation that will outline what was presented to you in your staff report. The applicant's design professional is here. Don't know if he'll be making an additional presentation. He's here to answer questions for sure. So with that being said, again, this is the Denmark Square project located at 1687 and 1693 Mission Drive. So the DRC did review this in a pre-application form back in April of 2023. At the time, the DRC did not support the proposed Danish agrarian architecture, but was open to certain elements. The direction that was given to the applicant was to use more reddish colors, using more European colors, using half-timber architecture design above the proposed stone line, using brick instead of stone, using stubble color to break up the massing. There was an importance of roofing and using the old world Danish design, a need for a cohesive design, and potentially revising the architectural designs, keeping more with the old world style architecture that's within the village. Employee and guest parking was also an issue that was brought up by the DRC, as well as access to the building from the back parking lot. So the applicant did, in fact, revise this project. It came back to city staff in late October of 2023. And has gone through, at this point, 2 rounds of internal review. City staff has determined, for the purposes of CEQA, as well as meeting the standards of the Solvang Municipal Code, we have determined that the project is deemed complete. So just an FYI. At this point now, because it's development plan, its trajectory is to go through the DRC for a recommendation of approval, and then ultimately we'll need to go to the Planning Commission for ultimate project approval. If the project is if denied by the Planning Commission, it can then be appealed to the City Council, or conversely, if someone wants to appeal potential approval by the Planning Commission, it also goes to City Council from that end. So the project is located at the corner of Mission Drive and Alisal Road. Again, APN number 139, 143, 025, and 026. It's approximately 1.37 acres. So you can see on the screen, this is 1687 and 1693 is the larger parcel on your right-hand screen. So the proposed project includes the following. It's demolition of an existing structure located at 1687 Mission Drive. It does include a proposed remodel with additions to existing structure, including 4 commercial units along the ground floor facing Mission Drive. The rear portion of the structure is proposed to be converted into a hotel use with approximately 40 rooms, including an outdoor pool and spa at ground level, additional courtyard and landscaping to accommodate all the outdoor dining uses, as well as the hotel use. The applicant is proposing a reconfigured parking lot proposed to accommodate the hotel parking, as well as hotel parking for a previously approved project located at 1704 Mission Drive, which is located to the southeast, directly to the southeast corner of Mission and Alisal, and is also owned by the applicant. There's a proposed new trash enclosure at the rear portion of the site. The applicant is requesting to pay parking in lieu fees for the required parking for the commercial uses, and those are for the ancillary 4 commercial uses that were mentioned earlier. There is a proposed 2-story building, including a roof deck, which is technically on the 3rd story. However, the majority of the building is not to exceed 33 feet in height, which is below the 35-foot threshold of the Solvang Municipal Code. There is a proposed bell tower element that's non-habitable. It's an architectural appendage. It is not to exceed 50 feet in height, consistent with our municipal code. And finally, there is a proposed lot merger to combine the 2 legal lots into 1 parcel in order to build a 0 lot line development consistent with the California Building Code and the California Subdivision Map Act. So I want to walk through the site plan with you. It is in your packet. It wasn't part of your, it was an additional attachment in your packet. So on the right-hand side of your screen, it is a picture directly from your staff report. And again, the site consists of 2 separate buildings, 1 on each parcel. The building located at 1687 Alisol, and that's this building right here, comprised of approximately 3,600 square feet, and is a single story, and that is proposed to be demoed. The other building, which is located at 1693 Mission Drive, is a 2-story structure consisting of 32,900 square feet. So the proposed project includes demolition of that existing building at 1687 Mission Drive. The front of the building, which is facing Mission Drive, and that proposed is setbacks approximately 11 feet from the right-of-way. The rear structure is set back approximately 99 feet from the property line, and these proposed additions to the structures currently meet the TRC setback, which is 0 on the side and rear, and then it is approximately 10 feet from Mission. So again, the proposed development does take advantage of the 0 lot setback along Alisol Road in first place, and the proposed development includes a new trash enclosure, which is located here on the rear portion of the site. The primary parking lot access will remain the same, which is currently here off of Alisol Road. And again, it's primarily for the hotel guests only, as well as the hotel guests located at 1704 Mission Drive. So currently, the city's in lieu fee is pegged at $12,376 per space. So approximately $445,212 in parking in lieu fees are to be collected if the proposed project goes through with the in lieu fee. So items that are highlighted in the slide are items that come directly from the Solvang design guidelines, and those are the village design guidelines were established in the late 80s. All the guidelines for this particular project, since it is a commercial project, are what I consider in play, as in these are guidelines that should guide the development and your decision to recommend approval as a part of the development. So specifically pertaining to site planning, projects are encourage buildings to be located as close to the street as possible. Projects are encouraged to include vehicular access along secondary streets. So in this case, the secondary streets are Alisol Road in first place. Parking lots are not to be located or oriented to the front of the building. So in this case, the parking lot is oriented to the rear portion of the building. And then parking lots are supposed to be screened from view. As you can see in the next couple slides, we'll discuss that in terms of the landscaping plan. And then new development is to be pedestrian oriented. So based on these guidelines that are, again, directly from your design guidelines, it appears that the proposed project does meet the intent of the design guidelines for the village. Moving on to the architectural elevations, although these are just 2 elevations that city staff has included, there are 4 elevations as well as additional renderings as a part of your proposed design package this evening. The proposed project was largely revised to half-timber architecture with colors and a more traditional colors to that of the existing village. Again, massing as an objective design standard is missing. So that is one thing that the guidelines is lacking, is how to treat massing. So in this instance, the applicants proposed the use of colors to break up the massing. The predominant roof material was changed from the artificial slate material for more cohesion with the half-timber Tudor-style architecture. Many of the window arches were removed, or many of the building arches were removed from the proposed elevations, and again, to reflect more the existing village character. A bell tower element is now included that creates a primary focal point for the proposed development. And again, the maximum height that is allowed in the TRC is 35 feet. So in this instance, the maximum height for the majority two-story building, including the third floor deck, is approximately 33.3 feet, which is under the TRC height. There is an exception in the TRC for what's considered architectural appendages. So it allows to exceed that 35-foot height. In this instance, the applicant is proposing a bell tower that's exactly at 50 feet. As noted in your staff report, we are recommending that that bell tower be lowered just to ensure that we are within that 50-foot threshold. And then again, that is a recommendation that city staff has. The DRC can make additional recommendations. Something that is new to this application that was not shown previously is what's called a rooftop deck. This is technically a third floor. I am familiar with rooftop decks, particularly when it comes to more coastal applications. So therefore, you capture views of the coast. In this instance, we'll be capturing views of the village. This rooftop deck does not exceed the height limit of 35 feet. So it is, again, an additional sort of gathering area. However, with rooftop decks, particularly in a hotel use, there could be potential issues, particularly in the village, particularly with social functions. So that's why city staff is recommending additional conditions be thought of, which is what we, in terms of utilizing lighting and other illumination that exceeds the parapet of the roof deck. So as much as we would like to see the string lighting, we're very cognizant of our design guidelines that request for dark skies, et cetera. And then again, keeping in feeling with the village theme that application may not necessarily be appropriate. And then, of course, placing an hour of operations for the rooftop deck, that's simply from a noise attenuation standpoint. So these are things that, although
Was
the
there
guide...
something about umbrellas too, though? Or?
Yes, that is also a part of that as well. So again, while the rooftop deck is a novel idea, and I think it's a fantastic idea for hotel guests and other visitors to take in the valley for what it's worth and its beauty, it needs to be treated with care. And our design guidelines, while rather robust and very well thought out for a document that's well plus 30 plus years, rooftop decks are not a part of that. So again, that's something that you should take into consideration as a part of your recommendations this evening. So very similar to our site planning, the architectural elevations for new construction within the village, the design guidelines set out a whole host of items for the DRC to consider. And I've listed those here for just your knowledge as well as those in the audience. So new construction shall be within the traditional and historic Danish themes or design vernaculars of the 18th century. So again, while this project has in city staff's opinion, has met that. There are some elements, such as the farmhouse, that where the chomp is, that may or may not necessarily meet that. Again, city staff believes it meets that. So as you deliberate, as you discuss this amongst yourselves, if there are issues that you feel need to be changed, be very specific. And again, keeping these design guidelines in mind with specific changes or recommendations that you may have to both the Planning Commission and the applicant. Buildings are to be oriented to the dominant or primary street. So in this instance, the dominant street would be Mission, and this does checkmark that wholeheartedly, particularly incorporating the courtyards, which we'll get into in a minute. Compatibility and material. So again, the applicant has substantially changed this from the pre-application review, taking a cue from the DRC back in April, utilizing the half-timber architecture. But again, keep the other materials in mind as you make your deliberations. Roof and dormer shall be steep in pitch, and again, the applicant has made an effort to meet these guidelines. Real slate or thatch roof material is accepted, so again, the applicant does change the roof materials to a slate material, which meets the design guidelines. Variation in wall facades, so that can be accomplished through various means, including colors, materials, et cetera. Again, the applicant did point out that they are utilizing color to basically reduce the massing, but again, keep in mind of additional materials or additional color hues may be in the DRC's disposal for recommendations of approval and or changes. And then finally, windows must be divided into panes. It is shown throughout the elevations that these windows are divided in panes. Carrying through, we would more than likely, city staff would carry that as a condition. But if the DRC wants to see additional changes, please, again, be very specific. But through a city staff perspective, the applicant has hit this mark as well. So one of the last items that the DRC has purview to as a part of these project reviews is landscaping. So again, the plan focuses on pedestrian amenities with existing corridors along Mission Drive. There are a mixture of private property outdoor dining opportunities, as well as sort of a courtyard opportunity for the hotel uses. So in this instance, the applicant is providing approximately 3 outdoor dining opportunities so 2 separate ones along Mission Drive and another more internal one. And then, of course, we have the mermaid statue. So the mermaid statue is a city landmark that many tourists take pictures on, and it is proposed to be refurbished as a part of this application. However, the applicant is simply proposing new boulders, pavers, and plantings. However, it's not really detailed what those are to look like. So city staff is recommending that conditions be added to this project, that the specific amenities return to the DRC prior to building permit issuance, specifically to vet paver colors, boulder types, et cetera, and particularly along the statue, because again, we recognize that it is a landmark that is very well photographed, as well as a landmark entry to the city. As far as the outdoor portions of it, consistent with the Solvang design guidelines, landscaping should present a unified appearance. In this instance, the applicant is proposing a unified planting plan along Alisal Road, as well as punching up landscaping in the parking lot. Small courtyard spaces and benches and fountains are decorative street lamps are encouraged within the interior of the retail complex. There's no lighting plan that was a part of this, so that would just simply become a condition. However, city staff does feel that the use of the courtyards has been very well articulated in this plan, particularly utilizing the courtyards for outdoor dining, which we as a village, we portray ourselves as a slice of Denmark. The outdoor dining is very much a slice of life in Europe, so that is very much welcomed. Decorative paving materials and encouraged for all walking surfaces, so the applicant is proposing various materials such as the bricks along Alisal, as well as stamped and colored concrete throughout the project, when that meets that mark. And then finally, trash enclosures shall be carefully located and treated to integrate with the appearance of the building. The trash enclosure is located out of sight, out of mind in the parking lot, and is consistent with the architecture that is proposed throughout the project. So again, it does meet those marks from a guideline standpoint. So one of the items we did touch on was the demolition of an existing structure. The proposed project does include proposed demolition of the structure at 1687 Mission Drive. So as required by the Solvang Municipal Code and California Environmental Quality Act, or CEQA, city staff requested a historical report on the property. Based on the historical report, while it is a part of our history, the property is not associated with an important event, nor is it associated with the productive life of a person important to the past, that is from a more national and California perspective. And the structure does not embody any distinctive characteristics of the type or period as a basic brick and mortar building. So based on the review of the report, city staff has determined that the structure is not of historical significance, and therefore it can be demolished. So to sort of wrap things up, I know it's a large project, it's a very complex project, but I wanted to give the DRC an overview of what they're reviewing this evening. So consistent with the Solvang Municipal Code, the DRC is to provide recommendations and advice to the Planning Commission for development applications, and that's what this is. And this includes the following: rendering its advice and recommendation to the Planning Commission on the colors, design and exterior architecture of buildings, landscaping, and exterior lighting aspects. So again, this is why city staff has tried to walk you through the pertinent design guidelines that are within that document that's given to you. It is available online on our website for those that don't know. And again, this is a major project as part of one of our key gateways here in the city. So we are welcoming of questions of not only us as city staff, but the applicant as well. And with that, that should conclude my presentation.
Thank you, Raphael, for that detailed presentation. Committee members, do you have any questions of staff before I open it up to the public?
My comment, I just think, I'm sorry, it is on. It is on.
Oh, it is on, good.
Yeah, that it's very well done, very comprehensive. I wasn't here at the meeting in April of '23, but I appreciate, the direction that's stated there from the committee, and I really think that the way that you have the agrarian feature of the barn and the silo, I think it works. That's my view of it. I think that's, that's very good. I think that bell tower, I think, is in a great setting there along the Mission. And I think they've done a nice job.
Pat, do you have
Responding.
questions for
Go ahead.
staff? Do you have
Oh, do I have
questions for staff?
questions? Oh, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
Staff questions.
I don't have any questions at this point. I'm sorry, yeah.
Yeah.
Good, thank you.
Question about the silo, precisely. Is it going to stay smooth like that, or we keep the steel in the joint, or change the color of a little vine?
So based on the renditions that are in your staff reports are a little misleading. They're computer renditions, and the applicant can touch on this more. Based on the board that was provided, it appears that it's going to continue to be metal, but I best leave that for the applicant to give you a little bit more information on.
White.
My only other question is relative to the parking, the number of spaces. Would you confirm that that's approximately somewhere around 34, 35 missing spaces?
It is 34 missing space.
Okay, thank you.
Excuse me, it's 35 missing.
35, okay.
35,
Thank
or
you.
even better, 36.
36, okay.
Yeah, so that, yes.
36.
Yeah, it is 36.
Okay.
And again, they're proposing to utilize the in lieu fee, and that fee is per space, not just
I understand.
12,000.
I wanted, for the record, that it
Okay.
was 36 spaces. Thank you.
I also have a question in regards to color samples. I believe there are 3 samples there. Are there other material samples or color samples available this evening?
That's a great question for the applicant, but I will pass these along to
Okay.
to the committee.
All right, so then I'll open it up to public comments. I'd like to see them and pass them on. Are there any speakers in the room or any people in the room who would like to speak on this subject? If you could identify yourself.
Tracy Beard with the Solvang Chamber of Commerce. As an executive board, we went through this the other day. We really feel that this is an excellent project for our community. We feel that this meets all the criteria for the community, and also the fact of this in lieu parking. We're selling more parking spaces than we even possibly have as a community. Where is the transparency on this parking? I don't believe people need a reimbursement, just like we can't go back on the real estate, but we got to move forward on this parking issue. We do find parking spaces. My parking lot on the weekend is empty, and I can tell you that. I can come in anytime and find a parking space pretty much on Saturday, Sunday. There's hidden little gems at the same time. We need to understand that we need to build, we need success, we need progress and economic growth and development. Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy. Seems like there's somebody else in the room who'd like to speak. Sure. Come on up and. No, you can come up and identify yourself, please.
I'm Jim Cannell. I own the Lansby and some other projects on downtown Solvang. And for many, many years, coming up here and taking advantage of what Solvang has to offer, when you come in and enter the city through 246, the first things you see is this unattractive green-looking pea-colored building. And then across the street, there's a vacant lot. Hopefully something's going to be done with that. And then you had Denmarket Square. And we looked really hard at doing something with that building, and I could not make it work. The fact that you have somebody that's going to invest a significant amount of money to really turn what I consider an eyesore into something that's going to be, I think, embraced by the city and by guests that are coming to the city is an advantage that is an opportunity that you have to take advantage of, because it doesn't come along that way where somebody's willing to invest, especially trying to maintaining the culture of Solvang. It's not going to be a flagged hotel. It's going to be a boutique hotel similar to the Lansby, which has proven really, really successful. And to the extent that they can build upon it, I think you have to give them the opportunity to make it a success. And you're really close. So I encourage you to go the extra mile and make this thing happen.
Thank you, Jim. Anybody else in the room? Okay, I'm going to turn it over to anybody on Zoom, on video. No hands raised. Okay, well then, perhaps we would like to start by bringing the applicant's representative up. Could you come on up, and perhaps you have some samples as well?
Hello, my name is Lonnie Roy. I'm the agent for the owner, and with me is Jenny, who is the architectural designer on this project. Unfortunately, we do not have additional samples for you.
I think we, isn't there connected to the microphone, please?
Yeah. And I think Raphael did a fantastic job in the presentation, so I think the scope of the project is pretty clear. I think I'd just like to speak a little bit more to the kind of overall design intent of the project as kind of envisioned by the owner, and how it kind of starts with that barn element kind of being one of these original kind of agrarian structures, and that the structure kind of grew organically. So that's why you're seeing these different forms and masses kind of breaking up the relatively long facade of the building. So that's just kind of the overall design intent of it. And it seemed at the original conceptual hearing that there was some appetite for kind of a reduced scale of that agrarian architecture. We are integrating authentic materials. We have a photo of the silo, which is local from this area. It's being purchased from the Catholic Church, actually, for that site. And so that's going to be brought in. Material-wise, we still are a little bit flexible on that. Right now, the package shows kind of a fiber cement, board and bat material. Owner actually wants to do a little bit more of a authentic, actual barnwood material that would be weathered. So I think we definitely are willing to come back with physical sample materials, and we kind of get those approved for you at a later date. That's kind of all I really wanted to touch on. I don't know, Jenny, you want to add anything?
I'm here more for questions. I think that you did a good job summarizing it, and Raphael did a great job presenting it.
Well, while you're there, I think on that silo, help us understand a little bit. We see an image of what I believe is probably the actual silo you're referencing.
Correct.
And on the plans, it looks just like a, white, round blob. What would we expect to see, understanding that the computer doesn't know how to draw it?
So the picture is a representation of the actual silo, and it would be lifted off the ground, so it'd be a little bit higher. What you're seeing in the rendering is a placeholder, essentially. It's just modeled up the same dimensions, so it's the same size, but just lifted off the ground. And this was sort of confirmed after the rendering is why it's a placeholder.
So what would be the finish then? Would it look like the picture that has the kind of weathered finish? Is that you're kind of maintaining that look that's original to it, or do you intend to have a change to that appearance? I think that's what had been asked.
The intent would be to keep this appearance that's in the image, and to sort of match the wood on the barn to be weathered and kind of cohesive with it. So again, it would have that feeling of growing out organically over time, which would help break down the massing of the building.
Good, thank you for the info. And I want to start by complimenting the team on taking to heart the many comments that were placed, after or made after the last meeting. There's been great leaps and strides, and we're looking forward to the community having a much improved kind of entry. And as that, there's a lot of scrutiny going into this project because it's such an important gateway to the community, as Jim Cannell just mentioned when he spoke. And as I've told Mr. St. George before, he's going to have a big legacy if he does these projects in the community. The look of our community in the future really hinges on these projects. So with all that in mind, I'm going to open it up to my colleagues for questions here.
So I have a few, and I'll get kind of straight to the point. I think this is a great start, and if anything, these are tweaks. These are things that I think would make it even better and more cohesive. I agree that it's a fantastic project, and the ability to really upgrade that corner is an amazing opportunity. And if I seem like I'm nitpicking, it's only because I'm trying to be objective and specific, and that's been the direction I've been given, that it's more helpful to you all if I'm more specific. So please don't, if you have a question about it, just let's have a discussion. Okay, so just generally, I think the yellow, in terms of the large size of the building, is a lot of yellow. And what I think would help is, while the yellow is acceptable as one color choice, I do think that in a palette of complementary or contrasting colors, it could break up the size of the building. So you could use the dynamic facade, if you will, as it undulates in and out on Mission Drive in a different color palette to kind of break that up. Again, your choice of whether you want complementary colors to the yellow hues or contrasting. But I think that would go a long way to giving it dimensionality and interest. Okay. I think all of the wood railings should be iron. I just think the wood may not translate as well as you think relative to the half timber treatment. And it's just not something that you see in the Danish vernacular in that type of building. And I use this reference, it's all in Danish, so all I can do is use the pictures. But it's been hugely helpful in guiding some of these more objective comments, okay, that I'm making today. Yeah.
The railing, according to the guidelines, should be recommended that be an iron railing. So black wrought iron is what's suggested.
Yeah. I'm going to skip over some other things right now. On the west elevation, when you look at that long run, again, it's a similar concern or idea of how to make it look cohesive and also interesting. And one of the things that brings to mind is the pool wall enclosure. It might be a nice place to add a brick detail that could bring the sidewalk brick up into the building in a way that looks and makes sense. And then you would mirror that on the opposite wall into the interior of the space. Again, brick is used in Danish architecture all the time, and so it does make sense. And then also possibly the elevator tower. It might translate as more of a chimney feature if it's brick. I don't know, but something I think they're bringing brick into more detailing in some of those stucco facades could really help warm it up a little bit where you have a long run. On that same facade, we have an issue. Something's going on with the half timber design at the peak of the roof line in the back building. And two things I think it is. I think that the scale, I'll show you that if you don't know what I'm speaking of particularly, but it's on page
A63.
Thank you, Patrick. All right. So just so everyone, maybe you can, I don't know, see it, but so this is.
Can you put that back on the screen?
Yeah, I don't know if you can get this on the
I
screen.
don't know.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, Raphael, bring it up for us. Thank you. So on the back building, on the half timbers at the peak, there's no condition in Danish architecture where the bottom of those cross members make a Y. They always make an X or a V. And so it looks very odd, right? And we were trying to figure out, I was searching for something that looked like that, and there's just absolutely nothing because you can't physically build a building like that. And that's why they're not a Y shape. So either increase the scale and the distance between the timbers have to be reduced, so you need more of them in that peak. And then also they should end in an X or a V at the fascia, okay? And I think that'll fix that completely. And then, let's see.
There are examples in the guidelines,
Yeah.
and I actually photocopied a page, if you would like to take that, that shows an application, just, and there are many others available. We
And
have
this
that
is also an example of where the contrasting colors or complementary yellows would be better than the white. I think the white here almost feels like a different building, or it could translate in real life as to they run out of money kind of thing. It's hard to know because you don't really know that till you're standing on site and you kind of have to feel it. But my gut is telling me that it'd be a lot better to look down that street and see a more color than white. But I highly recommend that we stick to a variety. And white, we have too much white. We're battling against white in every building development right now. Okay.
And then it kind
yeah.
of blends with the hardware store across the street. I went to kind of visually look in the neighborhood, and with that being white and kind of directly across, you want to differentiate from that, and doing different kind of complementary tones has a lot of impact.
Sure.
I don't know. I
Sorry
could
for
keep
interrupting.
going. I'm almost done. Okay, on the east elevation, I think you made it crystal clear, the grain silo. I only wrote as is cleaned but not repainted. I really think the beauty of the natural patina of that and having it be antique with what you said about the timbers on the agrarian farm structure being real is a home run. Please don't do wood board or cement board and batten board. I just don't think it should be that. It would be lovely if it was horizontal or vertical siding in old original wood, and that would be my recommendation, is that it's original or horizontal vertical siding, either with supports every 6 feet or whatever, but it's actually a pattern. It's a way of using the wood in a pattern to create interest. And then on that building, again, these are tweaks, but the size of the windows, to me, need to be reduced. The scale is off. The dormer windows particularly are outsized for the size, and they're not Danish dormers. So if they're country farmhouse dormers, then the windows definitely have to get smaller. The lights, or panes, whichever you want to use, there needs to be at least 4 on each window or side to make it look more authentic. With only 2 lights in those dormers, or even the clear story, it looks like sliders. It doesn't look rich enough, right? So please do that. And then in the large feature window, again, it's oversized. It needs a framing, either a framing around it in that space, so it's sitting more majestically over that doorway. Right now, it's bulging out, and it just doesn't look right. So if you could reduce that. And I think that's it for my design comments.
That was great. That was really nice job. I agree with that.
Do either of you have some additional comments to add to that, or support for Jennifer's comments?
I certainly support every point that she raised. I think, I like the silo is one, the silo is one feature. You've got it right now, and it's preserved, it's made out of metal, and it has the band, so that picture we have is what you're talking about, and you're really not talking about doing much
No.
to that.
No.
And it's a metal roof. Okay.
You mentioned that the silo is going to be raised. Would that be potentially, might be an opportunity to add brick around the base to incorporate the brick? I mirror all of or echo all of Jennifer's comments in thinking about the farmhouse, which seems the part that's a bit out of character. The rest of it, you've done an excellent job. As Jennifer said, we're now kind of getting into the weeds a little bit. And again, our staff said, none of this wishy-washy, we've got to be specific. So given that you're considering other applications for the finish, I'm happy to hear that. I would like to know more about that when you know. I would recommend that there be consideration, a strong consideration given to incorporating brick. Potentially another opportunity for that is in the posts at the entry for the farmhouse. The scale of the window up above, Jennifer has already spoken about that a bit. That needs to be rethought to have that, she said probably a heavier frame with the multi-pane, not an arch potentially, and that elevation. Or if it is, when you look at the kind of design guidelines, you will see that it tends to be smaller openings that are made when it's arched on the second floor. The expansion or the wall, I think you talked about brick opportunities there. The tower height is a concern that I'd like to hear a little bit more from you about the tower. The windows appear to be out of scale, a bit more Gothic seemingly, but not necessarily in scale. And if they're just decorative, a concern would be how those windows would appear at night, for instance, and how they will look all the time. It seems as though there's an opportunity to bring the entire scale of that tower down significantly and still have some kind of corner detail, but not at that level. And I actually have a quick staff question that I forgot to ask earlier. Are there towers in the neighborhood that are hitting that nearly 50-foot mark? At at Frederick's Court. I can't visualize 50 feet.
Towers, no, but windmills, yes.
Yeah, okay. So that's where we're talking. This would be the tallest building accessory. I'm not quite sure what that's called.
Still, it wouldn't be the tallest accessory. No.
Okay.
But generally speaking, some of the windmills with their blades,
Sure.
are going to be about 50, if not exceeding it. So,
Yeah.
but again, the building height itself is below the 35-foot threshold. This is considered architectural appendage. Particularly in this instance, it is at a corner. This would be First and Mission. So it takes advantage of sort of cornering the properties and again gives visual focal points,
Understood.
particularly coming from the east. So from our visitor, we have
Yeah.
a lot of visitors coming from the west,
Yeah.
but we also capture those visitors coming at that are
Pretty
using.
striking from the west, too.
Yeah.
Exactly. So coming from the east, it really provides that visual sense of entry from a distance.
And understood that it kind of sets the corner and sets a tone. The consideration would be to perhaps, I think that you really need to consider bringing the elevation down. So it's not just at 49 feet, but something that's a little bit lower than that, which will address that problem of the windows that appear out of scale in the Danish kind of vernacular that's here.
Can I just add, can I add on to that? So when I looked at that, I realized there is a room with a balcony, and then there's doorway, and then above that is the balance of that window. So, but the balance of that window is not, it's in a void, correct? Because it's above the ceiling height of that room, correct?
It was considered an architectural feature. and
Right.
We've had a few iterations of the tower, and so we could go back to lowering the windows and keeping the height of the over tower definitely below 50. But one of the reasons that it was kind of pulled up to the total height was, again, to give that feeling of statue on the corner, but also to get far enough above the roof height that it didn't feel awkward together, but that it rised up above and seemed intentional.
Yeah.
So it was like a proportionality to the overall height of the building that we brought it up.
So just in my experience, we've done faux windows before. They just never seem to work the way you want them to, especially when they're backlit with drywall and a curtain. And there's so many different ways you can sort of scratch that itch, but I just would feel like I'd hate for us to spend that much money and then it just be like something we wish we hadn't done altogether. So I would recommend eliminating the window and coming up with some other iconic, either iconography or something, not a clock. I'm not going to say it, but not a clock, but something that makes it interesting and lowering it maybe and trying to do the same things, but not with a faux window, because the faux windows just don't look great. And you just know it's a faux window and then it's no fun. Yeah, so recommend not.
Just looking at my notes here. The stone at the back, at the entrance, could be replaced with brick to be, again, in line with more of that Danish, and breaking up that long run simply by using, potentially your yellow that you're talking about with some complementary colors that would mirror the front. It seems an opportunity to really enhance the building's, beautiful dimensions, because you've done overall, it's such a wonderful project that you're proposing here. We're trying to be very specific to help you, and looking at elements that are incomplete that we're going to need to see again. For instance, the fountain, as was discussed, as being a very essential element to Solvang. The finishes on the hardscape finishes, and really the whole landscape plan, how that integrates into the hardscape finishes. It's hard to weigh in on the landscaping. Obviously, there's not a lighting plan, so that has to come back. I think that what I would like to ask you to consider is a return with a more detailed color palette and sample board for us to understand, and then the lighting plan, the completed plan with the landscaping. And then we could put the whole...
refurbishment plan.
Yeah.
For Mermaid.
The mermaid plan, which will be very important.
And revised materials per my design comments.
Yes.
But one more thing about this tower, I just drew it, but you might do something like just, cut it off at the roof line and then do vertical siding, because some of those towers in Denmark too are just vertical siding, and they're almost like a church wooden structure, steeple, yeah. So that might be another way of combining the farmhouse with the other corner and bringing those two things, linking them somehow, which would be kind of cool. But yeah, I think it is really, it's so close. I mean, I think with just these tweaks, you've got a fantastic project on your hands. No more comments than I would give any other micro-architects that I work with. So really thank you very much. And I do think it's a really fantastic, it's come a long way. So thank you for that.
Agreed. And, again, just, the missing elements, the more complete palette, and some of the concerns that we have, it sounds like you're already addressing in the sense of the farmhouse, the silo, all of that, very positive. And also to incorporate in the staff's comments in regards to, the metal railings as opposed to the wood. We've touched on that as well. Is it something that we should even address, the rooftop bar and limitations at this meeting? It seems like that would be more appropriate if the project is coming back.
Mm-hmm.
Thoughts on that, staff?
My suggestion is if you have comments, now is the time to do it.
Okay.
And again, because it sounds like you're leaning towards requesting this project come back to you
Yes.
for recommendation. And if that's the case, for efficiencies for the developer and design team's time, I would recommend making those comments now.
Good, okay. I believe that the staff has articulated those limitations effectively. Are there more details, staff, that you would like us to define in those rooftop limitations, setting specific hours that, I'm not sure if you want to say.
As far as setting hours of operation, that's more of a planning commission item, but, we would basically keep it in line with our noise ordinance, so it would have some sort of
Yes.
consistency. As far as any additional sort of design details, that's up to you as the applicant to come back, but you've already seen what staff has said, so if you want to keep it plain Jane, or as a part of any preliminary lighting plan, illustrate, where you have lighting on the required parapets, et cetera, that'd be fine. The one thing that I have seen in application, and I don't know if you've thought of this, is the use of the fire pits outside, particularly the gas fire pits. As much as it is a beautiful spring day, it does get chilly.
It does.
So I think city staff would be open to the use of those, but again, as a part of the timeframe, and particularly only in a gas operation. I know the fire might not necessarily be it. They'd have to get that clearance as well. But again, what we're looking more so is aesthetics, umbrellas, lighting, et cetera, not to exceed those heights. And again, taking away from the visual aesthetic of the proposed structure, which has been voiced by the DRC at this point.
I had another comment regarding awnings, and I'm not sure if that's something that you plan to incorporate in the original construction. The awnings in Solvang that seem to have the most kind of dynamic impact are often a contrasting color that picks up part of the color palette of the project. You may want to, rather than just being echoing the body color.
It's a very good comment.
So I think that would be something to consider.
So are you recommending showing a contrasting in color for awnings?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Yes.
Just want to make sure for my notes.
Well, I wasn't sure if they were coming back with awnings to be included in this project, or if that was a later portion of it. I would like to see the awnings. I think it's a good addition, and I think the tenants will appreciate awnings where there's, opportunities for them to put their business once that's approved.
May I make a comment?
Yes, please.
If the DRC so directed the applicant to show awnings, I highly recommend the applicant include as much information as possible, because the reality is we would like to make this a one-stop.
Agreed.
So whereas the DRC sees a completed project and therefore is the ability to give a complete recommendation to the commission, and therefore the commission then renders a decision, and if the recommendation is approval, then it allows for city staff to have a rubric to facilitate a quicker building permit approval.
Well, that sounds like that's what you would like, too. I'm presuming that would work best for everybody.
And
So please incorporate that in. Yeah, do you have a comment?
just on the south elevation, there are some green awnings showing. So I can incorporate more in.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. They looked gray on our
Okay.
printout, so thank you. I was thinking you were picking up one of the paint colors that was the subdued hue.
They're
It's-
green? Did
they're-
you say they're?
The roof of the tower, what it's made of?
Good question. Did you hear that? What is the material that the tower roof is showing here? It's a
Steel.
bonderized
It's steel.
steel. That's the kind of thing where having examples, although I know there's a notation about it having a kind of weatherized finish, it would be super helpful for us to see as many samples of the materials, and you might definitely have to show us examples of the colors.
Okay.
Yeah. It's kind of part of the requirement. Do we, Raphael, is there a motion on something here needed to define all this? It's rather lengthy, so,
It is lengthy. I have taken notes. As my kids like to complain, I'm a very loud typer. But I think we have sufficient enough notes from a city staff perspective to give back to the applicant. There is, it is a recommendation from city staff. So I would recommend that the DRC make recommendation to recommend to city staff to have the applicant bring this item back to the DRC and not render a recommendation at this time to the Planning Commission. Procedurally, we will then, I can get into what we'll do procedurally afterwards.
Okay, do I have a motion to that effect? Or do we need to have some more discussion? And in fact, I would actually like to turn it back over to the applicants for a second. Any other comments at this time up here? I'd love to have you give us feedback on everything we've just told you. Do you have questions for us? Do you have concerns?
Would you like to go?
Yeah, I don't have any questions or concerns. I think all of the comments were very specific, and I think they're all going to make the project better, and so I don't see any issue with being able to make those changes and come back before you with a revised project.
Good.
That's great.
And I'd just like to add, thank you for your time and reviewing it so thoroughly and having such detailed comments. It really makes it easier to do something for the community that everyone will love.
Yeah. I think the one last comment that is the kind of a bit of an elephant in the room about this project does, I think, need to be noted as well, that this is a wonderful project. The liability is the parking, and that is that is the problem with this. That is not the purview of this committee, but I believe that should be incorporated into the comments from the Design Review Committee for the Planning Commission to consider. And I'd like to make sure that my colleagues agree with that.
Yes, of course.
Yes.
Yeah, I concur, and I think they need a plan to solve it rather than buy your way out of it. It just is a problem for everyone. It's probably the number one comment that everyone makes about town. So we'd rather see it solved than just
Yeah, and
push,
with
kick
reference to
down the can.
With reference also to the builders' other projects that are in the immediate vicinity.
Yes, for the Lily sod.
They're all talking about
We need more.
benefiting from parking at an adjacent.
Maybe do a
location.
subterranean.
Yes, we think you should do a subterranean. I think it'd be a good idea. Do you, yes, to talk to the,
That's more than
your people about that.
Yeah, that's more than
Sure,
$12,000
they'll
of
be
space.
I've had a lot of community members speak to me about the project, and the overall comments have been positive. The big concern has each and every time has been, number one, the parking, and number two, what about the mermaid? So the mermaid is a very important part of it as well.
Definitely.
All right, so with all
So
that.
can I bring a motion to bring the project back with revisions as noted in tonight's meeting for further consideration?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion with the first and second. Lisa, could you take a roll call vote?
Member Lapp, recused. Member Kavanaugh,
Yes.
Member Martin,
Yes.
Vice Chair Dryden, Vice Chair Dryden Hess,
Yes.
Chair Jacobson Bates.
Yes. Okay, and I think that city manager or planning director just went to invite our colleague Chris Lapp back to the dais here. Thank
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Yes, a nice project. And if you need any references,
Reference, yeah.
there are books.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I believe that you can borrow them or get photocopies of them. The design guidelines for the city also have not great photos, but lots of examples as well.
I've looked at those.
Just-
Yeah.
Yeah, take a picture. Yeah, absolutely.
This was hand-delivered from Denmark, so I'm not sure where and how.
Did you get it?
But the World Wide Web is,
Yeah.
pretty good at those things.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
It's actually in Maggie's office watching you guys.
Ah,
Oh, it's so interesting.
okay.
So interesting, see, being on the other side of Zoom land.
Okay, so thank you, staff, Raphael, Lisa, for all the efforts put into this project and helping us as a committee, helping the applicant understand, and I think there's good things ahead. So with all that, I think now we move on to item 5, which is committee member comments. Anybody have comments here that they would like to?
I have a question of staff. Oh, I'm sorry. I have a question of staff. You indicate that what the in lieu parking charges now per space. How often is that determined, and how is it determined?
It's funny you mentioned that. Just reviewing that today. So this fee has been in place for quite some time. There are some things that we need
At
to...
this level?
At this level.
Okay.
There are some things that we need to do from a city staff perspective, and I'll be working with the city manager on that to ensure that the parking in lieu is done properly and consistent with state law in terms of identifying its use and what it is used for. As a part of my report out to you, I was going to discuss what came about from our council goal session, but parking was one of those ones. And
Okay.
myself and Randy and the other department heads, as well as city staff, will be working towards paring down those goals and how we go about meeting them. Again, with parking being a larger one of that.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody, any other comments?
I have a question. Is that a per annum charge?
For what?
Per annum?
No, it's per space,
one
so it's
time.
just a one-time charge.
Just a one-time?
Right, so, but historically speaking, the last 5 that I've seen done, they have been entered into agreements with the city with payments over time at an interest rate. So, again, that, from an economic development standpoint, that makes sense to collect such a hefty fee over time. But again, the council did identify parking, and particularly parking and congestion and management of that as its top priority. And it is it is a larger issue. However, taking Tracy's comments to heart, reviewing our 2021 parking study, there's a lot to be said about what we've done previously and bringing what was recommended back up to the surface and actually having a very real discussion versus what was completed back in 2021.
So my questions, some of it's already been answered, because my concern really did have a lot to do with in lieu, and having been around long enough to know that, probably most of the parking spaces that are close to this project have been sold multiple times. So that is a concern, and I felt it strongly, very important that this committee also put that on the record for the Planning Commission. I was going to ask about the goal planning workshop, but it sounds like you have that coming up. I'm sorry to have missed that. Had a family health emergency to deal with. And other than that, I want to just take a second and say how much I appreciate my colleague Pat and the time he spent in this chair as the chairperson for the committee. And I appreciate all of you bearing with me as I learn this process. And Lisa's a good guide in that as well, in the procedural element. So thank you. And and nobody else would take it, no. So to that, we'll go on to staff comments, please.
Yes, well, thank you. And I want to thank the committee for bearing with me on this staff report. I understand it was a change, and hopefully the guidance given to us based on the documents that we have was helped in your decision. And I do want to thank this committee for giving the applicant very direct direction. As I've explained to others, the more direct, the more precise we are with our comments, developers and applicants, while they might not like it, they particularly use that to basically rescope as needed, and it gives them a path of certainty. And so that is something that moving forward, it's our ability to work with the community, work with our business communities and applicants, and ensure that whatever comes from these committees, particularly this one, is a product that our community can be proud of. So again, thank each and every one of you, particularly those that came and talked to me about this project one-on-one and asked their questions, and hopefully we were myself and Lisa were very helpful. And for these larger projects, in any project, we are always open to have those discussions and questions so that we can have very spirited debates, as well as moving projects forward through the pipeline. With that being said, Randy, we did have a council goal session, which is well attended. Do you want to touch briefly on that, Randy, our city manager?
Sure. Actually, the comments on parking had me looking them up. This will be returning to council on April 8th to announce the results, but I'm giving you a little sneak preview. Surprisingly enough, parking was number one of the council's, the 33 goals that were ultimately discussed and ranked. Analyze all parking improvement opportunities to relieve congestion and financial options. So that's very clear direction from council that ranked all. That was the only one that they all five agreed to, as a priority. So, and most of them ranked it the highest priority. So it definitely resonated. I can share that we are working as staff to come up with some ideas, and that'll be discussed on April 8th. There are some things potentially in the works that will yield some results. The whole idea of the parking in lieu fee is to pay for parking structures, additional parking. I understand that in the past they have collected the funds, and that's how we got at least one of our lots was through a parking in lieu fee process. There is still a small fund balance, and by small, I mean, it might be a few $100,000, but that doesn't buy much these days, so. 100,000 isn't what it used to be, you know. So the idea is we're working on that. The city has recently retained a grant writer, so we're looking at options. We're exploring all things, you know. I mean, we pride ourselves on free parking. I know that's one of the things that we've, in a lot of our marketing, most of the larger communities, municipalities, you have to pay for parking. So that may be something that council directs somewhere down the road that has a way to help supplement it. You know, then you add code enforcement, because unless you give somebody a reason to obey the rule, they're not going to abide by it. So, I mean, it's a complicated issue, but we've heard our community, and our council is very well aware, and so we as staff are committed to helping resolve that.
It's sort of, good deeds don't go unpunished, and
Right.
the terrific success Tracy and the staff here have had in stimulating the markets and the economy and so forth there, and we have, you know, people full, you know, so you're basically paying the price for being successful. And,
Right.
you know, that's not all bad, but
Right.
we've got to address that issue for sure.
I would just say too, that the advent of, you know, digital parking meters, right? Like, you don't need physical enforcement anymore, right? You basically get ticketed if you don't re-up on your phone or go back to the single, you know, machine. And yeah, so, I mean, it's so much more streamlined. I mean, I was shocked, but when I was in the south of France, we're in the middle of a small village, and yet they have the digital parking machine. So I think if they can do it in the smallest villages in France, I think we can do it, you know.
Pismo has that. I was recently in Pismo, and I was kind of shocked at the amount it took to park for 20 minutes. Was
Paso is the same, Paso has the similar.
For the prime location, but
Right.
that's
Right.
this is something that has been debated and discussed and argued over for many years. So it's a big topic. I am surprised to hear that the in lieu fees that remain are such a modest amount. I mean, that's like a car to put in the parking lot now. So that's a bit discouraging. And it sounds like a very large amount that would be paid, but by Ed St. George or whoever it is that would be moving this project forward. But by the same token, there's, you know, an additional 9,300 square feet and, you know, a loss of parking spaces. So again,
Yeah.
just not to, you know, kind of reiterate. I'll stop there.
All right. Well, thank you, Randy. Just a reminder that our general plan draft DIR is still out for public review. April 16th is the final date to submit written comments that we will respond to. The aim is to have public hearings beginning either May or June, so we can have it wrapped up sometime in July. So that is ongoing.
Can I ask, sorry, oh,
Go ahead.
no, is there any way to see a printed version of that draft EIR since?
Yes, there's actually a printed version sitting right
Okay.
out here in the hall.
But that can't be borrowed?
Yeah, and at the library.
Oh, is it the library?
Yeah, it is, very much is.
But, you know, it's
can't- yeah, you
it's
can't-
reference,
It's,
yeah.
you can get it online though, obviously, and it's
Yeah, but I can't
extraordinary.
see it on my phone.
It's an extraordinary
Yes, I can't.
piece of work. I think that's
I
really,
can't use my work laptop, so I'm limited to my phone.
Yeah, it's a very large
It's a
doc.
technology problems,
Yeah.
you know, first world problems. All right, well, I'll check it out in the printed version in the lobby some afternoon.
You can come see me, we'll arrange something, so. And then finally, sort of an update of where we're at with the Alamo Pintado Apartments. I know that's well discussed in a lot of residents' minds. The applicant actually did meet with the Mission Oaks HOA yesterday to present a potential revised project. So that meeting went well in terms of just, hoping to meet the, hoping to balance the wants and desires of the HOA as well as what the applicant's pro forma and expectations are. But we are expecting a full submittal from the applicant to be within our doors within the next couple weeks. So that concludes. Oh, and finally, one last one. City staff would like to, and we'll poll the planning commissioners soonish about this, but we'd like to hold a joint planning commission meeting with both you, or you as the DRC and the planning commission to go over legislative and judicial laws in respect to our existing codes. So this would be a fun time to go over how are these new laws that magically appear every single year and how they slowly chip away at what we can and cannot do here in the city. And, but not saying facetiously.
sometimes it's not too slowly.
No, but at the same token, direction on how we can go ahead and modify our codes as well as policies to respond to the changes that have been made both legislatively and judicially, as well as how we, in the meantime, interact the two together until we get these new codes in place, which, speaking of which, ordinances and codes was number 5 on the goals list. So,
Good.
hurrah! With that, that'll
Hard to
conclude
believe.
my report.
Do we have a date, a tentative date for that?
I was actually looking at this next meeting. As we do have quite a few sign applications that are in, but just really depending, it's going to depend very much on
This project?
this project, because
just-
if and I'll meet with the applicant's design team tomorrow. If they want to get right back on the horse, then so be it. And again, and what the DRC's voice to city staff is to have these type of projects on. It's the only item to discuss, and this type of item should also be the only item to discuss, minus
Agreed.
anything on the consent agenda. So with that, we'll keep that in mind. But hopefully, with the next 2 months. And again, this was also an idea from Randy. So thank you very much to the city manager for leading that charge as well.
Yeah, and we definitely had requested that, so I appreciate that that's been heard. As much as that sounds like not especially fun, I think it's essential for us to be able to do our jobs.
It may not be a fun.
It's important.
I take pleasure in doing these things simply because I like teaching, but it is extremely important in these times.
Very much so.
And yes.
He likes pulling his fingernails out, too.
Will there be legal counsel present as well for us to ask questions of?
Oh, very much. Even though
Thank
he's on Zoom right now, he might actually be in person.
Okay, that would,
Taylor and I plan to be there in person. And
excellent.
just so you're aware, you've seen Taylor on a couple of the calls. Taylor has fairly extensive and recent experience in First Amendment issues, and she's been doing a lot of review of the sign issues. So that's why I've been asking her to sit in on these, but we'll definitely be there in person as needed.
Excellent, thank you, and thank you for responding to that. So you were saying there's a number of signs, so maybe just give us a little preview of what you do know about our upcoming meeting or meetings.
Lisa? You got she's gotten all the applications, and they've been like coming in like mad the last week or so.
We have 3 submitted sign applications right now, and then 1 for painting of a building.
Okay. Right, and the Almo Pintado project, do you have a projected date that does come to us, I believe?
So that, again, that's something I need to discuss with legal on how we go about honoring what the development plan says in our code, which is supposed to go to DRC, but in that one, again, state law has very clear, and so we would have to establish the ground rules, and I think having the legislative review is of the utmost importance before going to you as the body, because again, this meeting in the spirit of transparency, that meeting we will actually notice to the neighbors. We typically don't notice DRCs, but we will notice that one simply due to the sheer amount of gravitas this project has for the neighbors. And again, in an effort of transparency as well as provide public comment and input.
On that note, in regards to these major projects, and by these I speak of, the Dead Market Square remodel and, the future lumberyard project, as we call it, I would love to see that I would like to ask staff to please help inform the community of this. Yes, it's on the agenda. The one thing that disappoints me about today is just that there's nobody in the room for these very big projects. The people that are concerned, we often hear after the ship has sailed, so to speak. So I want to encourage staff to use every opportunity to inform our community of this opportunity to chime in on the project. Kind of speak now or forever hold your peace kind of thing, although we know that's not going to happen.
Excuse me, you talked about noticing on that project. What is the distance from the project to the,
300 feet.
300 feet, okay.
Okay. Right.
I had a couple comments,
Yeah.
if you don't mind. Excuse me. Interestingly enough, communication with our community was also on the list, ended up on the list. And we are investigating. I know Raphael and our marketing coordinator are talking about doing things, reaching out to the business community to be more informative. I'm looking at opportunities to have coffee with the city manager kind of meetings. I've done that in other jurisdictions. But I can also speak, and I mentioned this during the goal-setting session when somebody brought it up. I personally communicated with the community. I lived in Glenn County. I worked in Glenn County about 15 years ago, and we had a landfill tipping fee that needed to be increased pretty considerably. And I went on the radio. I went on the television. I was interviewed by the local newspaper. I went to the service groups. I went to the Lions and Kiwanis and the Rotary, and there was a Hamilton City Women's Group that had eight people attend. I went to the county fair and spent the entire run of the 4-day county fair in a booth with circles and pictures and arrows and everything else. And when it went to the Board of Supervisors for approval, there were 5 or 6 people in the room, and they all gave it the thumbs up. The board passed it unanimously. It wasn't until the bill came that people started coming out of the woodwork. You didn't tell me. You didn't. Again.
Understood. Yeah.
So, you can go to these links. You can do these extra things, and there still will be people to say, I didn't know, I didn't hear. So
Totally.
I'm not saying we can't do more, and I'm not saying we won't do more.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, that has to temper the expectation. What the reality is, unfortunately, people don't pay attention until it costs them something.
Yeah, or it directly impacts them.
Right.
And I want to compliment the chamber because their newsletter series has been very good at putting information in or links to agendas So at some point, it is the responsibility of the residents and the members of the community and the business community as well to, take the initiative to learn about what's going on. And agreed, you can only do what you can do. But all of that said, when there is major projects, let's have a little extra due, and then at that point, it's up to the residents.
I also wanted to throw out there, a little fun item is that the city of Solvang is being considered in 2 different categories in the USA Today. The best small town in the West, and also the best Main Street in America, I believe. And as of this morning, we were still number 1. Actually, we dropped, but we came back. We're number 1 again in the best small town in the West. The voting goes on for another couple of weeks. The best Main Street is a little bit longer, but I don't think we've gotten out of 10th or 12th place there. So encouraging people to vote. It is on our Facebook page. The Chamber's picked it up and is helping us promote it as well. So get on there, vote. You can vote every day on every device you have. It doesn't keep track of your Google connections. I'm voting twice a day. So just so you know,
Keep voting.
it's allowed.
And if you're successful, the parking problem will grow even more.
Yeah.
Right.
That's the thing. And then hopefully there'll be some more parking.
Tracy has her hand up.
Tracy, did you want to come up?
I have a comment on communication. Just so we know, today, there was 5 people here today. There were 14 people here for the goal setting. It has been on Solvang Strong, which has 900 residents, and they are vetted out as residents. It was on the SYV resource, SYV chat. Those have over 2,600 residents in the community. And I think we all do a good job, the city does, that it is really what Randy says. I'm here, we care, but not everyone cares unless it affects your pocketbook and the after effects. So I really think it's not doing a better job, it's getting people more engaged to what this community does on an economic level and on a tourism level and what their tourism dollars are paying for. And I don't think people understand that in the real world of living here in Solvang, that tourism is paying their taxes and is helping pay this office for all of our staff that do such a great job. So that's kind of just my comment. We have to be more engaged to the community, but I've gone to all these things and I've counted the number of people that are here, and we did the best we could do, and I really truly believe putting it out on all the social media platforms that there's no more places to put it out at. There's just not.
It's very encouraging to hear that there was that kind of distribution of information. Thank you for sharing that, Tracy. And I think that it shows that the word is out if you want to find it out. So thanks for clarifying. Okay, any other business at this time? Okay, I will adjourn the meeting at 6:26.